Hi there, I'm Karen Dunn of KMD Productions. From the equipment manufacturers to the engineers to the business people behind the scenes. Over the years, every member of the Pro Audio corner of the music industry have become family to me, and it's my job to bring the whole eclectic crew together. Each episode, I'll introduce you to one of these characters and open a window into my world of creating community in Pro Audio. Thanks for tuning in to One and Dunn. Hi, today we have engineer, mixer, producer Joe Chiccarelli. Joe, we've known each other for a long time. We were just talking about this. I think maybe we met originally at one of the Village Grammy parties.
Could be Village, or could be through Audio Technica, or something like that. But it's a while. It's a while.
Yeah,
we won't go into numbers.
But it's really good to see you.
You too. Absolutely.
I always love catching up with you when we see each other.
Yes, it's in the pre-pandemic years, it was always AES or NAMM, or maybe a trip to San Francisco for some reason or other.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do that again. Was music always, was it a thing in your family when you were growing up? Was music always around? How did you get drawn into that?
My family were not musicians, but they loved music. There was always music in the house. Even my grandmother loved opera, and I remember as being a little kid being fascinated by her playing, Caruso or whoever it was around the house. And so when I became a teenager, 13 or something, I picked up a guitar and started playing guitar and bass, and I had my years of playing in bands and all, and eventually moved out to LA, got a job as an assistant engineer, and just kind of worked my way up from there.
So you had a cousin that had a studio in Boston, right?
Yes. When I first got into music and was fascinated with recording, I happened to talk to my parents about it one day, and they said, you have a second cousin that owns a studio. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So, as a teenager, I kind of went over there and hung out, and would bother the engineer and ask if I could hang out during sessions, and eventually got my band to go into the studio and do demos there. And I was just really fascinated. I was like the kid that always looked at the liner notes and was fascinated with who played on the record or who produced it or engineered it. So I was kind of always, I had a thing for the sort of the making of music. Even when I played in bands, I was always curious about the guitar player's sound or the overall sound of the band, and was kind of conceptualizing, what the music should be. So I kind of always had a more of an interest in the behind the scenes than actually being a performer.
That's pretty interesting, because it seems like most people want to be in a band, and then if that doesn't work out, then they decide they're going to go behind the scenes.
Yeah, I went right for the fallback.
What do you think drew you to that so much?
I think it was just I wanted a artistic, lack of, I wanted to be a painter when I was a little kid. I always wanted to paint and sculpt, and was really into art. And my parents were wise enough to know that if I chose that as a career, I would probably be broke and coming to them for money all the time. And definitely persuaded me to choose something else. So I think as a way to get back at them, I just said, okay, I'm going to join a band and play guitar, and just kind of got interested in music from there.
Yeah. So you worked in Boston, a couple of different studios, and then you decided to pick up everything and move to LA. At
the time, Boston was a very, any secondary market, it was a very small scene. And I just knew that I had kind of seen everything, done everything I could possibly do there. And, really where all the music that was being made that I idolized and wanted to be part of. Most of it was taking place in California and New York. And at the time, a lot of my friends were moving to New York City. So I sort of felt like if I moved to New York, I would fall in with the same group of people and I really wouldn't be challenged. So I had a couple of friends that had moved to LA, and I came out here, slept on a couch and knocked on studio doors and eventually got a gig.
So that's a huge change. You're going forward in something you don't know if it's going to work, right? So what was the driving force that you were able to do that? Just pick up your life and move it to the unknown?
It's kind of what I had always wanted to do. I just really believed that to some degree I could make it happen, and there was more opportunities out here for me. So I think the fact that I had one or two people that I knew that had moved out here and seemed to be doing well, I thought, okay, why not? I can do this.
So you ended up with a job at Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many doors, how many studios did you have to knock on and drop off?
Wow,
before?
Good question. I think I must have gone to Kinko's 2 or 3 times printing up resumes. Yeah, a lot. But you know, like the times were different then. I mean, that's what you did. Now you basically work in your bedroom, and you know, you learn the technology and music on your own, and build your career from there. And you know, the only way anybody actually made a record or released music was to go in a professional studio. It was very rare for anybody to have the proper equipment to put out music, you know, in their home. It was just the technology was not affordable. So you kind of had to have a studio. So that was the road I had to take. So yeah, I knocked on a lot of doors. In fact, when I got the Cherokee interview, it's funny. I had the day that I went into the studio to drop off my resume, I was very lucky in that the owner of the studio was just passing by the receptionist desk when I dropped off my resume, and you know, he just said, "Let me see that." You know, took a look at it and went, "Come here, talk to me for a second." So he took me in his office and basically said, "Look, you know, I don't have any openings right now, but there may be a changeover in personnel here in a couple of weeks, and I can let you know." And sure enough, he did. And 2 weeks later, I had a gig, and you know, it was great for me because I was really thrust into this professional situation, which was at a level much higher than I had ever seen in my life. You know, the first sessions that they put me on were all the A-list of studio musicians from Jeff Beccaro and Larry Carlton and, you know, Steve Cropper and all the guys that were like the top. And that was just like the average day. That was just another day at the studio, you know, and it was always that level of talent. And that's how I got to meet Etta James. It was one of the first albums that I worked on as an assistant engineer. And I had known her name and maybe knew Tell Mama or At Last, or but really wasn't that familiar with her. So to be in the studio with that kind of singer and realize like, whoa, this is the bar. This is not, I mean, this is like just another singer. It's like, you know, at Cherokee, it was such a popular studio at the time, especially for all the UK artists, because they had tried A-range consoles, and all the UK artists, when they came over to LA to record, they were familiar with Trident, so they were very comfortable there at the studio. But, you know, on a given day, it could be Rod Stewart, the Bee Gees, Barbra Streisand, Hall & Oates, you know, Etta James, you know, it just really, it was like, okay, who's in Studio A today and who's in Studio B today? So you were around that level of talent all the time.
Okay, I would have been totally intimidated to start.
I think I was so young and so naive that I really wasn't. I think I just, and plus they worked you so hard then. You were working, 100 hours a week. So I think you were just exhausted most of the time and just were trying to stay, trying to just do your gig properly. That you didn't have the chance to be kind of intimidated by anybody.
It seems like, I think you're like podcast number 20 or something, but it seems like majority of the people that I've talked to in the podcast, that they have the skills, but a lot of their first jobs or even jobs after that have to do with luck and timing. So
my entire career has been luck. And honestly, I think, it's just falling into situations. I often think that sometimes it's just being a part of a scene and being swept away with that scene when that scene comes into vogue. And, like I say, I was lucky at the time that studio there was, maybe the most popular studio in LA, or that and record plant, maybe. I'm not sure. So there was a lot of activity there. And I don't want to repeat the story too much in depth because I've done it in other interviews, but I lucked out and got a gig with Frank Zappa through the studio. Yeah, it was just one of those things where his engineer couldn't make the session, and I worked with him, and I think because I wasn't intimidated and because I was very honest with him about what I felt about the music or what he needed to do, or he was really great and open and trusting with me, and that he asked for feedback all the time, and he wanted somebody that contributed and really took part in the music. And I wasn't shy about it because I think I didn't know that much about his music. I mean, had it been David Bowie or Lou Reed or somebody that I might have idolized at the moment, I might have been, not as composed. But I think in the case of Frank, where again, I knew his name and some of his music, but wasn't intimidated, that I could offer honest feedback. And I think he really appreciated that. And basically, I continued working with him and probably did 6 or 8 albums. He would record so often that you never knew what was going to get turned into an album and what wasn't. And still, his family has got archives beyond archives of all his recordings, and I'm sure there's a dozen sessions that I was part of that never got released.
Yeah. How unique is it that he asked for feedback from you and actually, I would assume, listened to it and used what you were saying?
In general, I think any wise artist wants input from the outside. All of us need it in our lives. I think, perspective is everything. Objectivity, it's so crucial. It's really easy in the studio to get so down deep inside what you're doing that you do lose that perspective. So sometimes it's just somebody coming in from the outside that really isn't a part of the process and doesn't have anything to lose that can offer you some kind of input. So I think, staying objective and clear about what you're working on is really, really crucial. In fact, I'll just give you an immediate example. Just the other day, I'm working on this album for this really great singer-songwriter, Liz Brasher. She's out of Memphis, was on Fat Possum, and really strong voice, really cool songs, a little bit retro, but yet very modern, very alternative. And I was just, comping a lead vocal, and just working at it for a couple of hours, and then finally finished it up that night. And, it was late at night. I wasn't sure of it, if it was good or bad, but came in the next morning when I wasn't immersed in the details of it and listened to it objectively. Perhaps I didn't have my coffee yet, and listened to it like I might be listening to something on the car radio, and instantly heard the vocal performance and went, wow, this is great. And then she came in later, an hour later, and I played it for her, and she was like, wow, I love this. I'm really happy with this performance. This is great, So, it's, you can't help but be concerned about every little facet of a performance or a sound or just the music in general, and having that ability to step away is really important.
What do you do if the artist has a certain vision of what they want and it doesn't really match what you think it should be?
Well, that's a good question, because it's something that I've learned that I really need to be clear with before I enter the studio. Usually the way the process works is that when an artist calls you or you're introduced to an artist about possibly working with them, that, you'll meet with them and sit down and, have a chat and find out what they're looking to do with the current record. And I'm really good. I do my homework. I listen to the demos. I make my notes. I listen to their past albums if they have past albums, and are really kind of, I try to get an understanding of who they are, what they've done in the past, what I think their strengths are, what I think their weaknesses are. And, I bring all that into the conversation and try to really get a deep understanding of what the artist wants to do with this upcoming recording. And if it's something I don't agree with, I'll tell them what I think they should do or shouldn't do. And if it's something that I think they're way off the mark, or my particular perspective on it is way off the mark, then I'll just say, look, I would love to work with you, but perhaps this isn't the album. Maybe I need to make album number 3 with you instead of album number 2, So it's really, really important that everybody's on the same page. And yeah, I try to really be clear about that. In fact, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I did an album with Jason Mraz, and when his manager called me to work with Jason, I just said, hey, Bill Silva, I said, Bill, I'm flattered that you called me, but, I'm not the sort of the moment pop producer that makes the typical thing that's going to come out on the radio. Might be a huge hit, but really doesn't have a lot of longevity. It's of the moment, and that's just not what I like to do. I don't like to. I just like to craft things specific for the artist, and so he said, "You need to talk to Jason because that's exactly what he doesn't want." And I went about it, did my research, really thought about a lot of his songs and his voice. And we met, and, I said, I see you as this real classic singer-songwriter. I think that some of your songs are really, could be long-lasting standards that are like a Paul Simon or a Billy Joel, and I think, you should do something that is honest and organic and classic and about the musicianship and the songs and your vocal and backing vocals, and, doesn't need all the au courant pop bells and whistles. He said, wow. He said, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to do something that's real and that's about the players and people in a room. And I said to him, I even think about, Paul Simon's recordings with all the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, the Ryman Simon and all Kodachrome and all those records that our dear friend Phil Ramone made. And, I said, that's what I think you should do. And he was just kind of knocked out. He said, wow, that's exactly what I want to do. And you're really the first person that's got it and understood it. And so we went about making a record. But, had I not taken the time, did my research, really thought about it, and sort of had a clear picture of where I wanted to go with it, that might not have happened.
So you've worked with a really diverse list of clients, and I was looking at your list for just last year, the year. You're constantly busy. What do you think it is about you that artists are coming to you, whether it's when you began your career, whether it's, it's a Bon Jovi or Elton John or some of the more recent artists? What are they looking for, and why do they want you?
I don't know. I work cheaply. I don't know. I really don't know. Seriously, I'm not sure. I just really try to do what I feel is right for the artist. I've never felt that it's my record. I've always felt that as a listener, as a kid that grew up loving music, that you want to dive into this universe that this person has created, just like a great writer or a great painter or cinematographer, that they're creating something that is just singular. And to me, that's really the key, is doing something that sounds like that artist, and that doesn't sound like any other artist. Like I said earlier, it's not really of interest to me to make something that sounds like somebody else's current pop hit. It's just I don't know why. It's been and done. It's about the future and possibilities and something new, and something that sort of stretches things and challenges people. So it's really important to me that every album I do has its own unique character and sound, and I really think a lot about that, down to not using the same microphones or whatever it is on a record, and not approaching it the same way, or one record is a lot drier and less reverb than another record, and one is all about the ambience, and so I really think like I want to make something that is just who this artist is or wants to be, and how they want to be presented.
So that's more work on your end, right? I mean, if you want something totally unique for each artist, then it's not like you're going to take something that you use recording the last artist that worked really well for that artist and just transfer it to the new artist, because you're...
Yeah, I wish it were that easy. It would be definitely make life a lot easier, sessions a lot quicker. No, I really try to really think about the artist, and and it's down to even if it's an artist that you have to hire musicians for. I mean, I really think about casting the musicians, getting the right players for the right artist, and not just players that sometimes it's you want to. Everybody at times in their lives wants and needs different things, and sometimes I might be talking to a studio musician, and I'd say, I'm bored. I really want to do a project that's way more R&B, way more groove oriented, and I really need to get out of this space that I'm in. And something comes along, and you're thinking, okay, I'm doing a more groove oriented record. Who would be great for that? This guy really wants a challenge. So it's putting together a team of people that you think might be really influential on this particular album. So I think everything is just a unique experience, and it's you're using different compressors, different vocal mics, different drum mics. You're recording drums in a different way. Sometimes you might use 15 mics, and sometimes you might use 4 mics. And, sometimes they're dead, sometimes they're live.
What was your biggest takeaway from working for that long with Zappa? And what did you take away and that you still use today with all your recordings?
A couple of things. The best thing was that there are no rules. Frank always liked to break the rules. He always wanted to do something that was unconventional. He always wanted people to sort of stand up and take a listen. He definitely didn't want anything that was conventional and pop. In fact, he used to tease me. He was upset at me when the first album I did with him, he had his first pop single, radio track, and he was pissed at me. He blamed it on me. He thought I kind of ruined his career because he had a successful record. But to answer your question, I think with him it was about really breaking the rules, being unconventional, doing things at every moment that were different and sounded different and really caught your ear. I think prior to that, I was maybe, just listening to a lot of mainstream rock and pop and didn't listen to a lot of perhaps avant-garde or fringe artists, and I think Frank opened me up to a lot of more experimental and challenging music. So that was really, really great. And I remember, I think at the time I might have felt like from all the engineers I had seen work in the past and the people that tutored me, that there were ways to record. There was methods that were proven, and there was a science to it. And I think the one thing he taught me is that just throw all that stuff away. That the only critique he would ever say of my work was that it was too clean. It was too good. It was too, he'd always say, you got to fuck it up. Just make it sound stupid. It doesn't sound stupid, meaning that it doesn't sound wrong. It sounds correct. And I learned that correct is equals boring, So you've really got to take some chances, and every little thing has to have personality. Even just my head's in doing lead vocals at the moment. So just thinking last night, comping another vocal, how there were little kind of quirks in the vocal, like little gasps of air or little odd phrasing things that could, when you take them just with that little 2-second phrase that they could be taken as mistakes. But when you look at it in the whole scheme of the song, it actually adds to the personality and the character of the singer. I had the fortune of doing 2-3 projects with Jack White, and Jack is brilliant at preserving mistakes. He loves things that sound real and that catch your ear, and even if they kind of tweak you the wrong way and make you think there's something incorrect here, he loves the idiosyncrasy of it and the quirk and the fact that it really did catch your ear.
I love things like some of the Frank Sinatra albums where you can hear something and it's the drink he has in his hand, it's the glass, or like old Billie Holiday where she's, just the mistakes, I think, add just more to the overall feel of it. So I love that part.
It feels emotional.
Yeah.
It feels human. It feels alive.
Yeah.
Sinatra is the best example. It's those weird moments of phrasing where you just wonder, did he lose the beat there for a second because he's so far behind the beat or whatever it might be that it does. It makes it more human and you remember it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So everybody's going to fail. People are going to make mistakes. So what do you think has been your biggest failure, and how did you either fix it, overcome it, make it so you could move on to the next thing? Because a lot of people they fail and they want to be done. It's hard to move forward after that.
I'll tell you maybe what my biggest failure and my biggest revelation. There was a period where I was really, really busy and was making 3 albums at the same time. And basically I was kind of working 2 weeks on one record, then 2 weeks on another, and 2 weeks on another. And this wasn't by design. It was just people's touring schedules and everything just were crazy. And I was going back and forth with these records. And also at the time, I feel like I was very, very specific and hands-on with all the musicians I was working with, whether they were studio musicians or in a band. I think I was very specific about suggesting parts to people and, note for note, melody for melody. And anyways, after I finished those 3 albums, they all kind of wrapped up around the same time, and they all were being mastered around the same time. So I had to sit and listen to all 3 of them to approve the mastering. And I realized the similarities in the records, and I realized how much I was sort of dictating parts to the players, and I was so hands-on that I wasn't giving people enough freedom to be themselves, and it didn't matter if the record was good or bad. It's just I heard my influence on the record, and I felt like, wow, I'm stifling people, and I'm also running the risk of making an album that sounds like a producer's album. And that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to have a sound or a stamp or something that is indeed of the moment and has a 5-year lifespan, and that's the end of it, and that's the end of your career as well. No matter how successful it might be, there are from Phil Spector on, we can name a lot of different record makers that have had major runs, but they've been only in that time period, and then people are on to the next. So I was kind of fortunate in that I really had that moment to have to sit and listen to those masterings, that I heard that, and I just made it a point from that day on that I was gonna be sort of much more hands-off with everything that I do. I told this story before, but I was really fortunate when I was a 20-year-old assistant engineer working on a couple of albums with Jerry Wexler producing. And I was kind of initially blown away because Jerry was like so quiet and hands off, and he was ordering lunch for people and cracking jokes, and really wasn't telling anybody what to play or how he wanted the song to be or whatever. He was just kind of letting it all happen. And one day there was one particular track that wasn't happening. It wasn't clicking in the studio. And he just simply, in conversation, not even specifically saying, hey, what if we made the song sound like this? He didn't do that at all. He just mentioned an artist in a song, as if just we're just talking, we're ordering lunch, and he just threw that out there. And you know, the next thing you know, 20 minutes later, people are starting to play something that's kind of in the vein of that song he mentioned. And it was perfect. And you would never, if I played you the original song that he quoted and what the track ended up being, you would never even see the comparison. But he did this in such gentle, roundabout way that he just put it out there in the world, just kind of planted the seed and let it happen. And and as a result, a ship that was about to sort of crash didn't crash, and he got a great track, and no one felt like they were being kind of muscled into something, or they felt like they had their space to come up with something that was their own. It was pretty amazing, and it took me a minute to sort of figure out what had gone down over this half hour. But when I did, it was quite a revelation.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it seems like that's one of the things that you definitely do now all the time, right?
I know, I really try, and you know, I'll be very vague, you know, when I suggest things to people, and deliberately so. And if for some reason they're not understanding what I'm talking about, then I'll be more specific. But sometimes I feel like with anybody that's creative, if you suggest something very specific, be it a melody or a sound or whatever, sometimes all you get back is just what you suggested, and that's it. But if you just do it in a very vague, roundabout way, they get the essence of what you're talking about, and they make it their own. They own it. They're more excited about it. They're more passionate about it, and they deliver something that's way more unique and much better than you could think of on your own, because it's their flavor, it's their character.
So you started off primarily as an engineer, and then you expanded into becoming a producer and a mixer. So why did you decide to do that? And what was that transition process like?
I think that was just the way the business worked at the time. I mean, I think, when I had bands as a kid and all, I was always kind of producing them, if you will. I was sort of like kind of always concerned about the big picture, if you will. I wanted my role to be more than just a guy that played the bass. And so I was always doing that. But the way that you kind of broke into producing was through engineering. If you look at the people at the time, the Alan Parsons or Phil Ramone or Bob Clearmountain, or they all sort of started as engineers. So that was sort of the route that everybody took at the time. You worked at a studio, you garnered some great clients because they were coming into that studio, and you engineered for them, and then maybe you co-produced for them, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Like I said earlier, the variety of artists you've worked with and your credits is just amazing. I saw that you worked on the soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever, which I don't know why that one stuck out, but it's like, oh, I love that when I saw it. But it's amazing. But I didn't realize that. So you've won 10 Grammys, which I did know, but that 7 of them are for Latin music. So
yes. Yeah, no, I've been really fortunate. A lot of this came from my connection with Gustavo Santaolalla, who's an amazing film composer, artist, record producer, dear friend, and super talented guy. And so we've done probably. God, a dozen albums together. Him and Anibal Carpel are his producing partner. We've all made records together where I've mixed for them, I've produced for them, and engineered for them, and it's a great team over the years. So yeah, I've been really fortunate to work with Juanes and Julieta Venegas and most importantly Cafe Tacuba, who if you don't know them, they're, to me, people have said they're the Radiohead of Latin America, or people compare them to Beck. They're real innovators. They're real chameleons. They're shapeshifters. They try different things with every album. They're like Frank Zappa. They're not afraid of anything. They're absolutely fearless. They will do an album that is, like traditional music, and then the next album it'll be all blown up industrial sounding music. And yeah, they're amazing. I mean, they incorporate their Latin roots into modern alternative pop music, and it's like this. I love the cross-pollination of genres and styles, and that's really, really exciting to me when somebody can kind of incorporate some sort of traditional element into something that's maybe a dance track or an electronic music track, but then all of a sudden you hear bagpipes in it, or something that's unexpected. That, to me, that's really great. That's really, I love stretching things. I love that sort of odd element, that what's the expression? Square peg in a round hole. That thing that doesn't quite fit, but yet it does, and it catches your ear, and it makes you remember the record. It's the thing we were talking about earlier, like those flaws, those moments that shouldn't be there are the things that ultimately make something just stand the test of time. I don't know, I'm flashing on David Bowie now, and some of Tony Visconti's great contributions, and with the weird harmonized piano, or whatever it might be, the great vocal sound, the things that just initially sound wrong and you go, what is up with that? It's the thing that makes you remember the record.
So when you work with someone like Joan Baez, or I'm looking through your credits, Pat Benatar, Poco, Romeo Void, they're all so different. Does it take you like a second just to be able to readjust to the new artists?
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, when you're young and you're just getting your start as an engineer, you work on whatever comes your way, and you learn to adapt to it and do the proper thing for that style of music. And, every sort of genre, every style has elements that are really, really important to it. Whether it's, country music, where the song and the story, I should say, has to really come through, or it's industrial music where it's about the intensity and the energy and the tension of it. So it's really great in that you really learn a lot of things about a lot of different styles of music and what the priorities are, and it I think helps you later in life. But yes, you do definitely have to sort of put a different hat on, a different suit of clothes on for every project because of that. And it does take you a little bit to kind of sink into the driver's seat and do it properly, But the good thing is that what you learn from some of the other styles of music, you sort of subconsciously incorporate into what you're doing. So in the end, it actually helps you make a more unique record for that artist that you're working on.
So in 2020, you worked with Morrissey, the Jacks, Half Moon Run, Taylor Jansen. 21, you worked with the Districts, Half Moon Run, Lily. You've been in this business for a while. What do you do to stay creative and current to attract these artists that are out now?
I mean, I'm listening to music all the time. I'm always checking out the what's new. I mean, it's important to me to sort of I don't know, find something that's different, somebody that's really kind of doing something that's fresh. So I'm always checking out new artists. I'm always on all kinds of websites, listening to things, just even if it's 10 seconds of an artist, just to see what people are doing, what the trends are. Yeah, I definitely, I'm curious. I've always been that, I've always, I was always like the kid in school that, would find some new music and had to turn their friends onto it. You're just like, wow, I just heard that, you got to hear this. I think you'd like this. I know what you like, and I think you'd like this band. And so I'm still like that. I'm always like that with anything, be it a new artist or a new restaurant. I'm always curious. It's just part of who I am. And of late I've gotten to work with a lot of great artists. Liz Brasher, who I just mentioned, the Districts, who are a band from Philadelphia. They're great. Rob Groth, the lead singer, is a really wonderful writer who I think is just starting to hit his peak now. I think that band is really, really going to do some great stuff. I just finished an album for this band from Canada that I think are great, called Bluestones. It's a two-piece band that are they definitely rock, but they have a great sense of groove. Even though some of the beats can be a little complex at times, everything really grooves and is kind of dancey, but at the same time it's like a two-piece rock band. So there's certain things you can do and certain things that you have to do if you're a two-piece to keep the energy big and alive. So you can't get too intricate with the parts, but they managed to like really come up with hooky, danceable tracks, but at the same time, really kind of fresh beats. They're really, really talented guys. So that I did a record for a really great new artist, Percy Howard, who kind of came out of the New York City Bill Laswell material, sort of underground, real left of center artist, but he's got this beautiful angelic voice and really, really great storyteller. Fantastic artist. So yeah, there's been a lot of things of late that, and again, everything is a little different because to me, I don't know, artists are different, and you want to do something that not only is challenging to them, but you as a music maker. I don't want to get stale. I always want to try different things and push myself and, see what else I can do,
Yeah, I've been lucky because through my career, I've had conversations with you or Ed or, Elliot, any of those, and to find out what they're working on, and it might be an artist I'd never heard of or had never listened to. And I also have talked with a lot of front of house live sound guys, and so they tell me about different artists. So every time I hear, I go and get it and listen, and it's really expanded what I listen to. I don't like all of it, but
yes,
it's always interesting for me to hear what you like and what you're working on. So I say, okay, let me go check that out. So I think I'm really lucky that way.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I mean, that's kind of one of the fun things for me, like working with young bands, because they'll come in and, talk about 100 gecs or whatever band they're into at the time. And so I instantly go and check it out,
Yeah, yeah. My youngest son is 25, and so he will let me know about music he thinks is really cool. Yeah. So if there are students listening to this right now and they decide they want to be you, they want to have a career like you have had.
God forbid.
What kind of tips would you offer them to be able to achieve what you have or something similar?
You definitely have to learn a little bit about the technology, a little bit about music, a little bit about the business, a lot about psychology. Working with people is the most important thing, and being able to handle different temperaments at different times in their careers. That's really, really, really important. I also think, I think people make the mistake sometimes of only working on the kind of music that they like, and they exclude other opportunities. And like I was saying earlier, I think you really learn a lot when you work outside of perhaps your field of expertise. And I think that's a really great way to expand yourself creatively, by jumping into worlds that you don't know.
But you have to be willing to take that
about.
risk, right? Because it's always, you're out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's what I'm getting at. And I think that even if you want to wind it all back to where I started, working with Frank Zappa, and the times that I might have gotten questioned about what I was doing, it's that maybe I was in my comfort zone too much, and that's kind of what he was trying to say to me. It's like, you got to dive into the deep end of the pool.
Something that's really important to me is this community, this pro audio community. I love people in this community, and I ask all the guests on the podcast, what does community mean to you? And everybody has a different answer, so I'm asking you, what does community mean to you?
Yeah, that's really a wonderful thing to bring up, Karen. I've met like so many great people here, so many other producers and engineers and musicians who are, I think people in this business are, you got to be giving. You're really, contributing to a record. You're really putting part of yourself in somebody else's life, in their music, and that's really, you're building relationships with every project you do. You're really sharing yourself. So I think that what has been great is all the many other producers, engineers, musicians, manufacturers, people that I've met through the years that are on Grammy committees and all, and to see everybody's passion and excitement and commitment to it is pretty beautiful, because you then realize that just as music might have saved me or transformed my life as a teenager, it pretty much did the same thing with all these other people. So you really have that in common there, and there's that just a really beautiful bond.
Mm-hmm. Where's your favorite place to record?
Oh, wow. Well, I certainly, I've made Sunset my home, so I love the studios there. They're really classic 70s studios with really beautiful tone and custom-built consoles and a lot of the old school values. And we're lucky in that in LA, we have places like East West and United and Capitol that are incredible sounding rooms. I've made 4 albums or so now at La Fabrique Studios in the south of France that I absolutely love. And for the same reason, that there's a number of acoustic environments in that space, as well as a great sounding recording studio that really just enliven the sound of an acoustic instrument. There's nothing like a great sounding acoustic guitar or piano or string section in a room that is made for it, and the tone just blows up. It's incredible. So being in a great acoustic space like that. I grew up in Boston and would always, as a kid, go to Boston Symphony Hall, which is one of the classic concert halls in the world. And I just remember, you could, going in as a kid, you could go into the orchestra's rehearsals in the afternoon. They would let you in free. And, hearing a symphony orchestra in an amazing sounding hall it's like, only equal to being next to a guitar amp with a really great guitar player. It really, your whole body is involved. It's incredible.
The first time I saw B.B. King at the Great American Music Hall, and he started playing his guitar, it just, I know that feeling. It just kind of overtakes you. It's so cool. Yeah. Okay, last question. I ask everybody. And it has to do with food. So this is the scenario. We're going to get together. We're going to go out. Where are we going to go to eat? What am I going to be eating? Because I don't like making decisions. What am I going to be drinking? What kind of music are we listening to? And what are we talking about?
Wow. We're talking about the future, because the present is not so great. I won't go into that any further. Growing up Italian, I kind of had my fill of Italian food for years. And finally, in the last 5 years or so, I've really enjoyed Italian food again. And that can be something that is just simple Mediterranean food, or something that is more involved. One of my favorite Italian places in LA is Felix down in Venice Beach. It's a really great little restaurant. Outdoor space is beautiful. Love that place. I know tequila isn't something that goes with Italian food, but
it's okay.
I would choose tequila. I like bolder red wines. I usually like Margaux and Saint Emilions, but I would probably, as a drink, I would choose tequila, because I think people loosen up on it. I think it's definitely one to free.
Okay, what kind of music were you going to be listening to?
I'm not a classic rock guy. I'm not one for the past. I would probably, if I'm listening to anything, it might be something like traditional jazz. I would listen to, if I ever delve into the past, it's usually for jazz. So, it could be anything from Miles Davis or Monk or something like that.
I love 50s Miles Davis. I could listen to anything from the 50s.
Yeah, so. It's just the best.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been fun to catch up. It's been a while. Yes.
You're welcome. It was fun. Absolutely.